Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, it's great. I opened my eyes and there's many more people here. Good to see you all. Today's a special day. Today is Gora Purnima. Purnima means the full moon. And it's called the Gora Purnima because it was on this day that the avatar, you could say avatar, although it's technically we can get into some, but Krishna appeared in a very special way as Gora in a golden form, as in his name is Sri Chaitanya, amongst other names that he has. And all of so much of our festival here, particularly the Kirtan, is coming directly, you could say, from or through Sri Chaitanya. He's the devotees here with this style of tilak on the forehead. They're the followers of Sri Chaitanya. And so it was suggested perhaps I speak about him today. Would that be acceptable to everyone?
Yes.
And I think what we speak we may be likely intersecting with so much of what we've been discussing already. Certainly intersecting with a lot of stuff that we're going to be speaking about soon. So things will, hopefully connections will be drawn. Shall we start?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So here's a nice drawing of Sri Chaitanya. Krishna himself appearing on this earth in this yuga, the Kali Yuga. He's called the Yuga Avatar, which means in the 4 different yugas, the 4 different ages, each one of them lasting hundreds of thousands of years. Krishna appears in one form or another to present what is the Yuga Dharma, what is in this age, what is the particular Dharma that is most effective in delivering the aspiring yogis. I'm sorry? Well, this is in this age, he came to share that Dharma. Sri Chaitanya shares the Sun Kirtan. The chanting of the names in Sun Kirtan means congregationally, everybody doing it together. So that is what's happening. You know, that's the basis of the festival that we're having here. And he's the one that inaugurated it. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that happened. But to put it in a context, I wanna go back in time. And let's say if you're in India, like thousands of years ago, like let's say 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, they say that this is called the Vedic age, where people were very much kind of governed by the 4 Vedas, these ancient books that speak a lot about performing ritual for the purpose of living harmoniously and accruing good karma so that we can enjoy the good things of this world. You know, healthy families, wealth, you know, rain for our crops and all like the good things, but on a material level. This is what the 4 Vedas teach. And there was an age that was very much driven by that or grew out of those teachings. And it's said that within those teachings, they're really meant to come down and meet people where they are. These aren't the highest spiritual teachings, but they're meant to come down and meet people according to their somewhat materialistic inclinations. Now, the 4 Vedas, they make it clear that there's karma, there's reactions that one gets for all one's actions, and particularly for violence. You know, if one commits violence, then one gets a bad karma for that. One gets a similar reaction coming back at them. So they teach ahimsa and they teach nonviolence, but they knowing that some people are very much attached to eating meat. The Vedas give people some kind of concession that if you must do this, then here's the way to do it. And it creates a ritual And that ritual is really designed in such a way so that as you're doing it, you're being reminded, maybe I'm not doing the best thing here. Maybe I ought to reconsider this. But that it's said that those loopholes, you could say, became like wide and open and everybody started going through them. So there was a lot of animal slaughter taking place in the name of the Vedas. And then Krishna incarnated, it said. And he incarnated as Buddha. And Buddha took people away from the Vedic teachings and to a path of ahimsa. But he did it removing all of the kind of the personal information about God that was there. And so for some centuries, all of India was pretty much mostly Buddhist. Then another very special person arrived, and his name was Shankara. And I'll bring him up here. You can see him all the way on the left, Shankaracharya. He lived, I believe it was about 1,250 years ago or so. And he brought India back from Buddhism to the Vedic texts, what we now call Hinduism. He did it by teaching the Vedanta, teaching the Upanishads in a way that was very similar to Buddhism. So it wasn't such a leap to come back to these texts of Vedanta. Everybody with me so far? Any questions? Is it confusing to anyone? Don't be afraid to raise your hand if it is. Okay. So he brought them back, but he taught Vedanta in a way that really took a personal God out of the picture. Personal forms of God are, in one sense, accepted or respected by Shankaracharya. But he says, but the higher truth is when you let go of all these conceptions, all form, all duality. You let go of all that and you come to this oneness of Brahman. And so without going too much into his teachings right now, that became very popular all across India. He was an amazingly powerful person, amazingly powerful thinker and speaker. And he toured. Even as a young man, he was traveling all over India. And, in those days, you would convert like India was all these separate states. It wasn't India. It was like separate kingdoms. And he would tour them. He would speak to the leaders and to their pundits, their counselors. And he would convince them of this philosophy. And in that way, it would spread very wide. Once the government gets behind it, it kind of spreads more. And he really brought India largely all the way back to the Vedic text, but teaching them in a way that, again, that was similar to Buddhism. Now, a thousand years ago, so in the wake of Shankar, and I should be clear, what Shankar does is he writes commentaries. Commentaries especially on what's called Vedanta, which means the Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutra, which is a summary of the Upanishads, and the Bhagavad Gita. These three texts are particularly important for establishing your lineage of Vedanta. So he establishes this lineage with his commentaries. Now, a couple centuries after him, there begin to become bhakti yogis that are also establishing their lines of Vedanta. In one sense, the lines are always there, but popularizing them by creating the literature. So following Shankaracharya, who's really the founder of Advaita Vedanta, this non-personal approach to the Vedic texts, comes Ramanuja. Ramanuja, down in South India, becomes a very powerful figure. He writes commentaries on the same books that are essentially responses to Shankar's teachings, validating so much of what they say, but critiquing and challenging certain points that he makes, and bringing people to the idea that bhakti is the conclusion of Vedanta, that it's not that I merge into the oneness or I realize that I am God and that there is nothing but me as the conclusion of enlightenment. But he's saying that no. Our individuality is something that's eternal. God's individuality is something that's eternal. And our relationship is an eternal thing. Realizing that relationship through bhakti, through love, is the culmination of all of the spiritual path. And he's brilliant. And he writes very, very powerful arguments, critiques of Shankar's teachings. And that starts a wave of bhakti across India. And so much of what you see, just when you walk past these shops and see all these temples and so on, so much of that becomes influenced by this wave of bhakti. Ramanujacharya, super important character. And he's followed by a number of other powerful philosophers. A couple hundred years later, about 800 years ago, there's Madhvacharya, also wrote important commentaries on the same books, and he kind of revives another lineage of bhakti. Four bhakti lineage, there's Shankar's lineage, which is the Advaita Vedanta, and then there are four powerful bhakti lineages or Vaishnava lineages that come down. One with Ramanuj Acharya. These are all acharyas because they're the founders. They're called acharya because they're the founders of these lineages. So there's Shankara, who's an Advaitin. Then there's Ramanuja, Madhva. They're very similar. Their ideas are very similar. There's some subtle nuances. And amongst two other lineages, there's some subtle nuances. But essentially, these bhakti acharyas are teaching bhakti, teaching that divine love is the goal of Vedanta. Okay? So this takes us about up until 800 years ago. And now bhakti is really on the map in a big way. It was always there, but now that it's been systematized, codified, it has very clear a literary basis and philosophical basis. It really begins to spread throughout India, and bhakti becomes a very popular thing. Okay? Everybody good so far? Okay. Some more centuries pass until we get to about 500 years ago, and this is a very interesting time. It's a time where bhakti takes, it actually, there's a new wave of bhakti. And this new wave of bhakti has some really important aspects to it. One is that different saints, bhakti yogi saints, started appearing in all of these different areas of India, all these different states. One thing that they kind of seem to share pretty much across the board is the older teachings were very much set in what's called Varnashram Dharma, very much set in what today they call the caste system. And these considerations were considered very important, what family you were born in and so on. With this new wave of bhakti, we see commonality across India that people that were born in what would be considered lower positions are being risen to be recognized as exemplars in Vedanta, as great saints, as those people that we want to follow, and that bhakti or devotion becomes a higher consideration than one's background. Is that clear? You get many stories like this. And every state has their, in Maharashtra, there's Tukaram, there's Mirabai, people like this. She was a princess, not a Brahmana. Wherever you go, Kanaka, I think is his name, in Kanaka, in Udupi, Tulsidas, you got Haridas Thakur, it's so many. And another thing is that at this time, the literature starts to be presented in people's vernacular languages, the local languages. So it really starts to spread in its popularity. And this idea of bhakti becomes very strong in this age. So those are some things that were really significant about this wave of bhakti. But there's something still more significant. And that is that it's almost like if Shankaracharya brought Vedanta back to India, and Ramanuja and Madhva and these other bhakti yogis, they churned the teachings of Vedanta. They churned it to its richer essence, so that it wasn't just about letting go of one's material attachments and realizing one's connection to the oneness. But they churned it and they said there's more to it. If you really churn it, that oneness that one finds with God is a oneness through love. And love is really what this is all about. So they churned it down to love. But that love coming, if we go back to Ramanuja and Madhva, that love is a kind of love for God that's full of reverence. God is great, right? And it's kind of the common idea of of how one relates to God, right? God is all powerful, and we're dependent on God, and this is truth, and it's a beautiful traditions that they have, beautiful prayers and incredibly rich philosophy, beautiful culture, incredible temples, music, art, dance is all growing out of that. But this next wave of bhakti, one really important, most essential part of it is that they churn this still more. The next wave of acharyas, they churn this bhakti vedanta still more until they get not just to love of God, but love of God in the most intimate sense. Love of God where you even forget that I'm dealing with God because I love you like a friend, or I love you even with parental love, or even one can love God with a romantic type of love. Now you're not seeing God as great and I'm small. You've forgotten that. And in the depths of your love, you're relating to God very intimately like this. Does this make sense? And there's different names for this kind of bhakti. Sometimes it's called raga bhakti. Raga means attachment. It's it means all of your all that you do in your bhakti is done out of attachment, out of love. I do it because I love you. Why do I chant this name? Not because I know that it's good for me and it's a yoga practice. I do it because I love Krishna. I love chanting his name. Why do I offer this or do that? It's all growing out of pure love. So this is shown in the Srimad Bhagavatam, this so important text in the 10th canto, where you see how Krishna's devotees relate to him. Not as we've seen in so many other stories, God is great and we're small and he's saving us, but it's loving Krishna in this very intimate, close, personal sense. And throughout these traditions at this point, there's messages that this is what God likes. this is what moves God. There's messages where Krishna is saying that the love that has reverence is appreciated, but what moves my heart and even controls me is this intimate love. And so this intimate love becomes an important aspect of this wave. It was always there, but they really churn it out of Vedanta and present it as this is where it goes. Is that significance? Everybody getting that? Okay. Now I want to take you to the 500 years ago. And in a place called Vrindavan, which is, if you get in a car, you can drive there. It's 6 hours from here or so in the car. This is the place of Krishna's Leelas. Those that are, from the Bhakti traditions accept that this Vrindavan that we can drive to 6 hours from now is not an ordinary place, that it's a manifestation of the spiritual world in the material world. And if you have the eyes to see it, you can see it. If you have a heart open to it, you can feel it. And at that time, roughly across the 15th century, 4 really important ecstatic figures in bhakti appear. Sometimes they're contemporaries and they're meeting each other. And they all share in common that they have this special love, this special deep personal love for Krishna. This is their only interest. Everybody with me now? Okay. So I'm just going to introduce you to some of these characters really briefly. On the left here we have Swami Haridas. He was actually born into one of these Vedanta lineages. But when he came to Vrindavan, the teachings of Vedanta as he had known them, where you love God with reverence, he kind of lost, I don't want to say lost touch with that, but he went deeper somehow in Vrindavan, the place of Krishna's pastimes, and he had ecstatic experiences there, experiences of intense divine love, that he began to compose songs about. He wrote songs about these feelings that he had, songs of love for Krishna. And his followers study those and sing those songs. So he was one of these people. There's another person named Hit Harivansh. Also similar, right? Also ecstatic figure, relishing this deep personal love and writing songs about it. Then you have someone named Sri Vallabhacharya. All over Gujarat, in much of Rajasthan, are the followers of Sri Vallabhacharya. And then Sri Chaitanya, whose appearance they were celebrating today. These four are all in Vrindavan in that century, all experiencing similar kinds of feelings, and all having followers that begin to follow in their wake. Okay? Everybody with me still? Okay. I'm keep checking in because I'm not getting any reaction. I don't want to. I don't want to. So if there's any questions, please feel free to ask. Yes, Sanatanji. Microphone. There we go.
So Adi Shankaracharya, even though he was
Advaitin.
Advaiti, but at the end of many of his journeys and teachings, he established stotras and Bhaj Govindam and
Yes.
different stotras for the divine feminine. Then he also established Kedarnath temple. Then he established 4 mathas which are in 4 directions. So like I was always confused about this, that even though he was like a proper Advait philosophy teacher, but he also established bhakti.
Yes.
In fact, in Bhaj Govindam, he says Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam Moodh Mate, like,
Yes.
you stupid being, just do the
Sorry.
bhakti of Krishna and do nothing else.
Yes.
So
So Sanatanji, he's speaking about Shankaracharya, and he's saying that Shankaracharya was this Advaita Vedanta. His path is not bhakti. So there's 2 different ideas about who Shankaracharya was and what he was doing. So the Advaita Vedantins say, yes, and he wrote this very famous song. This song is very popular all over India. Bhaja Govinda, worship Krishna, worship Govinda, worship Krishna. But he says it 3 times. When you say something 3 times in a row, it means it's really, it's really urgent. Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Mudha Mate. Fools, you fools, listen. Okay? Worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda. Essentially what he's saying is all of your debate, on the technicalities of Vedanta will not save you at the time of death. Just worship Krishna. It's very much sounds like a pure bhakti message, right? So the Advaita Vedantas are saying, when he says Mudha Mate, he's speaking to the foolish people. He's speaking to the people that aren't so wise. And he's saying, for them, bhakti is good. It's a step forward. But what the bhakti yogis say is, no, he was speaking to his own disciples. He was speaking to his own disciples at the time of death and saying, really, if you want something higher, you worship Govinda. I've been teaching you how to debate and all this stuff, but there's something more than that. And he shares that as his final message. So in our lineage, the way that we understand Shankaracharya is that he's Shiva. He's Lord Shiva. And it's written in the Puranas that he comes to teach Vedanta in a way that's like Buddhism, to bring the Buddhists back. And he knows that what he's teaching is not perfect Siddhanta. But it's a way to bring everybody back to the Vedas, and then following in his wake, Ramanuja, Madhva, etc., bring people with the next step to the pure bhakti understanding. So different people have different understandings of exactly who he was and what he was doing. But here's where I want to take everyone now. Now we have Sri Chaitanya. Of these 4 ecstatic figures, there's lineages that follow each of them. Lineages that now take an interest in bhakti in this very personal sense, in this very intimate way. And their followers follow in their footsteps. But in our lineage, there's one distinction here. And that is that we say this figure, Sri Chaitanya, he's not just a great ecstatic saint, but he is Krishna. And this becomes, there's a verse in Bhagavatam that speaks of this. There's other verses as well. Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishnam Sango Pangashtra Parshadam Yagnai Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Hi Sumeda Saha. That in the age of Kali, the age that we're in now, intelligent persons perform the congregational chanting, the Sankirtan, to worship the incarnation of God who constantly sings the names of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he's Gaura, he's got this golden complexion. He is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. This is a verse that perfectly aligns with Sri Chaitanya. He's born in the age of Kali. He has the golden complexion. He's constantly chanting Krishna's name. He inaugurates the chanting of the Sankirtan, etc., etc. There are other verses from the ancient texts that speak of Sri Chaitanya as somewhat of a hidden avatar. And he is known across India, but he's not as currently He's not as well known or as widely worshipped. But the prediction is that as this age goes on, his popularity become very widespread. And we see that happening now. And I may speak a little bit to that as we go. But this is really essential to understand what I'm going to get into now. And that is that it's Krishna himself coming, playing the role of a devotee of Krishna. And what is that all about? And the idea, it's very esoteric what I'm about to share, but it's what you really need to know if you're going to understand who Sri Chaitanya is that Krishna sees Radha. Radha is the lover of Krishna. Krishna loves Radha, right? Radha is the embodiment of bhakti. And Krishna says feeling the love of Radha is an absolutely wonderful experience, but he can see what Radha is experiencing by loving Krishna is still more. In other words, there's one perfect object of love in all creation, and that's God. Because whatever there is to love in anyone else is coming from that source. And the most perfect and fulfilling love is to love God, to love Krishna. But there's one person in existence that doesn't know what that's like. And who would that be? The God himself, right? He can know what it's like to be loved as God, but he doesn't know the experience of what it's like to love God. And when he sees the experience of the ecstasy that Radharani's in, he becomes very curious about that experience. And so he says, I want to know that. I want to know what it is to love God the way, not just to love God in general, but to love God the way Radha loves God, with the deepest and most intense personal type of intimacy. And therefore he takes birth as Sri Chaitanya. Does that make sense? He's got two reasons for appearing. Whenever God appears in different ways, he's got his reasons. It's said that Sri Chaitanya has two reasons. That what I just shared with you is his internal reason. His internal personal reason is that I want to know what it is like to love with the intensity and the purity that Srimati Radharani has. What is that experience like? That is the highest experience. I want to taste it. That's the internal reason. Now his external reason becomes very interesting. And I want to pull up a quote from a great sage named Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He writes this in his book called Jaiva Dharma. And if you listen to this carefully, it's really important stuff. He writes, the tenderness of heart experienced towards Krishna is known as bhakti. If I have a soft heart and I point it towards Krishna, I feel this love. It's an overwhelming, wonderful experience, and that's called bhakti, love of God. He says, all other jivas, all other souls in the world are servants of Krishna, and tenderness of heart towards them is called compassion. Okay, so in other words, if I'm this soft-hearted, enlightened being, and I look at Krishna, what I feel for Krishna, the love that I feel for Krishna is called bhakti. And then if I take that same heart and I turn it towards the rest of the world, to everyone else, that same feeling that's called bhakti when it's going this way is called compassion when it's going this way. Does that make sense? Okay, next step. So when Krishna experiences the love that Radha has, it's not just love, it's not just bhakti, it's not just this intimate bhakti that we've been talking about, but it's the intimate bhakti at its most extreme peak, the Radharani's love. So he's experiencing love at its extreme peak, or bhakti at its extreme peak. When he turns his heart to the rest of the world, what is he feeling? Compassion to its extreme peak. Okay? He's feeling compassion on a level unmatched. And exactly how that compassion is expressed is his feeling of intense need to share this intimate bhakti with everyone, regardless of their qualifications, right? If you were to follow Shankara's path, you would have to be, we talked about this a couple of days ago, right? You would need tolerance. You need an intense drive for liberation. You would need so many different qualities the student would have to have in order to progress, even to be accepted as a serious student, what to speak of to progress steadily and achieve the goal. It requires so much qualification. The idea is here, Sri Chaitanya's compassion is so intense that he wants to give it to everyone, whether they have any qualification or not. And he wants to not only give them the goal of Vedanta, but the highest churned cream of the cream of the cream of Vedanta, this intimate love that the residents of Vrindavan have. So so for theologians and Vedantins to think about this, this is incredibly significant. And it plays a role in all of our lives because we are the people of Kali Yuga. And the idea is that Krishna came here to give to, in the Kali Yuga, we have the least qualification. We're all walking around weak in terms of our determination, disturbed minds that can't meditate peacefully, et cetera, et cetera. And Krishna says, I'm going to come and give them a method that they can achieve the goal. And not only the goal, but the highest and highest and highest, most churned goal of all goals, the love of the residents of Vrindavan. It's born out of this intense compassion, and we all have the opportunity to be the recipients of it. Now, let's go back for a second. I said Swami Haridas, he wrote songs, and his followers sing those songs to understand the feelings that he was feeling and develop bhakti. Hidhari Vangs did the same thing. They actually didn't even engage very much or at all with Vedanta. They didn't go back to the Upanishads. They didn't write commentaries on all of that. They were just, their whole mood was, these aren't the things that move God's heart. It's these feelings of bhakti that we have. Now, Vallabhacharya did go back to Vedanta, and he wrote his commentaries on Vedanta. Sri Chaitanya will do the same. But he'll do it, and his followers will do it. His followers are known as the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. They take Sri Chaitanya's teachings that he gave to them, and they write them all down. And in their writings, they deal intensively with Vedanta, showing that this love, people like Swami Haridas, and if I go back, people like Swami Haridas and Hidhari Vangs, they're not even so much they're just kind of caught up in their own bhakti world. Sri Chaitanya, because of this compassion, he's saying, I want the whole world to get into this. In order to do that, I'm going to have to speak to the Vedantins and show people this is authorized, this is authentic, right? He takes sannyas, he shaves his head so that he can speak to the Advaita Vedantins and convince them so that it'll be taken seriously. And rather than write his own songs, he establishes his teachings based on Vedanta to give it authority. And rather than just write his songs, he reaches back into the Upanishads and he finds a verse, he finds a mantra, he finds a prayer called the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And essentially what he's saying is, everybody's been skipping over this, but if you look into this mantra, you'll find that all of the love of Vrindavan, all of the love of bhakti is in it, all the love of Vrindavan is in it, all of the love of Radharani is in it, because this Hare Krishna is essentially chanting Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna. Hare is referring to Radha. So when we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, and then Hare Rama, Rama is another name for Krishna, the abode of all pleasure. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Essentially, this mantra is a dance between Radha and Krishna, or the Rasa Leela dance, Radha and Krishna in the center and all the gopis around. It's taking the pinnacle of what's exposed in the highest Vedanta literature, the Srimad Bhagavatam's 10th canto, Rasa Leela. All of that is here in this mantra. If you chant this mantra, you can get all of that love. It'll arise in you. It will awaken in you. And so he somehow, what these other ecstatic figures in Vrindavan were not so concerned with, which was like, I want to give this to the whole world. Sri Chaitanya is driven by this. He's experiencing these feelings within, and he's trying to share it like crazy without. He creates a method for doing that. Look, chant this mantra, and within this mantra is everything. And then he starts to spread it, and his followers start to spread it all over India. And in his text, it's predicted that it will spread all over the world, right? Now, for 500 years, that prediction was unfulfilled. But within the past half century, we've seen bhakti has spread throughout the whole world. And it's my personal strong faith that we are living in a moment of history wherein the teachings that were trapped within India, they've been churned to their essence. They've been made broadly available. They've broken the shell out of India, and now that's going to grow and grow and grow and grow. Because this bhakti path, it satisfies a lot of what spiritual people are looking for in the most beautiful way, with an incredibly beautiful conception of the divine and an incredibly powerful Vedanta philosophy for understanding the self. Yeah, I'll take questions now before I go into the grand finale here. Yes. Let's get you the microphone. No problem. It's good for the recording, if you don't mind.
If this desire for proliferation started 500 years ago, how did the caste system in India at the time affect that?
It wasn't the desire for liberation, but this intimate love.
For the proliferation, for the expansion, so that everybody can know this. Everyone can know this compassion, not the liberation, the proliferation.
You see, what you're asking is so important. Why? You see, I want to share that amongst these other great Vaishnavas, I hold them with the highest honor. But it was Sri Chaitanya that was saying, I want the world to have this. And in order to do that, he had to go back to Vedanta. And his point is, when you really look at Vedanta closely, you'll see that love becomes more important than any other external consideration, including birth, which the caste system got warped into being an understanding that was based on birth. He also showed that the roles that you play in society, they're not actually based on birth. They're based on one's qualification. And so his teachings directly countered like an oppressive caste kind of paradigm. And he did that by going back to Vedanta. So where these other great saints were kind of just concerned with relishing their own ecstasy in Vrindavan, to bring it to the whole world, he had to show that this is higher than caste considerations, that divine love is the ultimate consideration. Does that answer your question? You sure? Okay. That becomes very significant, why he goes back to Vedanta and he pulls all of this out. He had one associate named Haridas Thakur who was born in a Muslim family. Now, according to the caste system, you're not even in the caste system if you're born in a Muslim family. You're born eating meat, you're born completely out of touch. He elevated him to the position of the Namacharya, the great teacher of the holy name. It's about as high a role as you could have. And there's many other instances. These 6 Goswamis themselves, they were all born in Hindu families, but they would be considered outcasts from Hindus because they were all, well, not all, but the most important of them were deeply engaged by the Muslim government. Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami. So in many ways, I'm just giving a couple examples, but in many ways he was not only teaching through Vedanta, but demonstrating himself. The most intimate and important teachings that he shares that elevate the love of Radha to the highest rung I said he became a student to understand Radha's love, and he submits himself to the teachings of a person who is a Shudra, which means the lowest of the castes, technically. He accepts the highest teachings. Although he was born in a Brahmin family, he accepts the highest teachings from a Shudra. So in many ways, he's showing these considerations are not important. What's important is the depth of one's love. This is the consideration. So it's a big topic, but I hope that addresses your question to some degree. All right. Thank you. It's a very good question. Let me take one more question, and then I just want to share the end of my presentation because I think it might be significant. Yes,
Thank
please.
you. It's just more out of curiosity, I guess. So at the time, how did the non-Vaishnavas see Sri Chaitanya? Like he was stirring up a lot of, very controversial, right?
There's a long biographies that talk about this. How did the Muslim government relate to him? How did the caste conscious Hindus relate to him? There's a lot of hostility, but he was actually very powerful and beautiful. When it said that he appears with his weapons, I don't know if you caught that, but it said, because the different avatars appear sometimes with different weapons, but Sri Chaitanya's weapon was his beauty. And so he was so beautiful, and his message and his method was so beautiful that many of the hostile people were won over like that. So there's a long history about that, very fascinating history. And if you read the text, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you really get a very rich understanding of his life. I just want to share one, if you don't mind, because we'll run out of time. If we have time, we'll come back, okay? I mentioned that I think we're at an important point of history, that we're at that time in history where bhakti is spreading throughout the whole world. It's definitely happening. And when Srila Prabhupada, who we see pictured here, went alone, without any money, as a 70-year-old man to New York City, without any support, and just a case of his Srimad Bhagavatam books, he began it. And in the next 10 years, he established roughly like 108 temples all around the world of bhakti, and started something that continues to grow to this day. So that was like the crack, when it cracked open. Now there is one of the things that he requested his followers to do that wasn't accomplished in his day, but which he kind of set the literally, what do they call it? Set the foundation, not cornerstone. Is it, you set the first stone in a sense. He did that for a temple at the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya. And going back many centuries, there's a prediction that this Adbhuta Mandir, this wondrous temple, will arise. And from this temple, bhakti will spread throughout the whole world. That temple is about to be opened, right? And so I just want to share about that. This is in Mayapur, India, the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya. Over here, there's the river Ganges. It's where the Ganges meets the river Jalangi. This is a kind of like a, what do they call it? Like architects make these kind of things. This is the layout of this holy city that will arise. Already there's been a temple here, which is this, that's been there for decades. But this is this wondrous temple that is yet to be opened. And this is what it looks like today. It's still under construction. You can see it's not finished. I think this may be the largest religious dome in the world and like the second largest dome in the world, or something like that. I don't have all my statistics and all that correct. But this thing is huge. It's an amazing temple. But notice that there's one main dome in the center, and then there's two domes on the side. And I want to discuss that. It's called the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium. That's another angle of it. You can see the Ganges River flowing next to it. This is one of the domes. And this is what the interior looks like right now. This is the one that's the most finished on the inside. So you can really get a feel of what it'll look like. This is actually you don't even see the dome in this, the top of the dome, but it's a huge dome. And this is a temple to Lord Nrsingadev, the protector of the devotees, the avatar that protects the devotees. It's really beautiful when you see it. It's really well done. Right now, they kind of installed like some paintings that are going to go here. They put them here. I just came from Mayapur where I saw the artist who's doing all these huge paintings that'll go in there. It's really, really, really nice. So you can see it all coming together. But this just gives you an idea of what the other domes will look like inside. This is the main dome as it looks today under construction. You can see it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 round balconies. This is huge inside. And there's a massive dome as the ceiling. This is the altars that will be there. It's the Guru lineage will be on this altar. Sri Chaitanya and his associates will be on this altar, and Radha and Krishna and the 8 gopis, just as we see here, will be on this altar. But this is a real insignificant thing that I want to share with you all, that hanging from the center of this dome, this incredibly massive dome, bigger dome than probably any of you have ever seen in your life, because it's will be hanging this, they call it like a mobile or a chandelier, but like an incredibly massive one, that's showing the Vedic cosmology as you go up, the different layers of the, it said there's 14 planetary systems in the universe that we're in. And then beyond that, there's the Vaikunthas, different levels where bhakti is lived, until it gets up to the, and again, it's churning it and churning it to where the love is on the level of reverence, until the love is on the level of intimacy. And at the very top is Radha and Krishna. So it'll look something, something like these pictures here. It's a little hard to tell. And as you go up these different balconies, there's all kind of like educational information to help everyone understand this entire theology and the entire cosmology. So temples are like a huge thing in India. To this day, there are temples that literally tens of thousands of people are visiting every day, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people. And they all have their religious purpose. This temple is already very popular, even though this part hasn't been opened yet. When this opens, it's really going to become huge. But what I want to share with you is it'll be more than your average temple. It'll be more than just a place to go to for a religious experience, because it's really designed as an educational experience as well. So in this central dome, there'll be this demonstration of the Vedic cosmology and the theology that's aligned with that. As you go up to each level, the Vedanta getting churned and churned and churned to its devotional essence. But in the other dome, we said there are two on each side. One was the temple for the Avatar Nrsingadev. The third dome will be a planetarium. And not just a planetarium, but like a screen where hundreds of people can sit back in these kind of comfortable chairs, like they do in movie theaters now, and look up at the dome and see Vedic cosmology presentations, but also all kind of beautiful philosophical and theological presentations done in a most dynamic kind of modern way. So you can picture that like thousands of people will be coming through here every day and getting a spiritual or religious experience, but also getting this spiritual educational experience. And so this, again, the prophecy, you could say, is that from this temple, bhakti would spread around the whole world. This will attract the attention of scholars and media and all of that. And it'll really be an opportunity to teach a beautiful, fascinating, philosophically deep, very relevant and aesthetically beautiful idea of spirituality that can have the power to touch people all around the world. So Sri Chaitanya is the origin of all of that. We celebrate his appearance today. Primarily, how do we do it? By the method that he gave, which was the chanting of this Maha Mantra. And I need to stop right now. But hopefully that gives you a little background. I hope that's been helpful. And please stick around. There's all kind of nice ceremonies going on today. So it's a good place to be. Thank you all so very much. Hari Om Tat Sat.